He vanished overnight. An empty penthouse, a desk strewn with spreadsheets, and no sign of the man who controlled millions in cryptocurrency. How could a 38-year-old tech titan simply disappear? This is Wiz Mysteries True Crime, where hidden lives collide with grim reality. Ethan Blackwood, 38, was an American cryptocurrency entrepreneur who seemed to have it all. He co-founded Omni Crypto Incorporated, a Seattle-based blockchain startup that rode the wave of the crypto boom to massive success. By 2023, his net worth was estimated at well over $1 billion. He was often called a visionary, a former software engineer who believed digital currency could change the world. In public, he was charismatic, sporting tailored suits and a trademark salt and pepper beard. And he often told reporters that new blockchain technology would break down financial barriers. At home, however, Ethan's life was a study in contrasts. He lived in a sleek modern mansion overlooking Elliott Bay in Seattle, with floor-to-ceiling windows framing the rainy skyline. Neighbors noted the pricey sports cars in his driveway and the discreet security detail at his door. For all his wealth, friends say Ethan worked obsessively. He spent long nights coding in a private office, crunching numbers for a secret project. He was married to Julia, a high school math teacher, and they had a 4-year-old daughter, Maya. To the outside world, they were a happy family. Photos of Ethan holding Maya on yachts or ski trips made regular appearances on his Instagram, but those closest to him hint at a life under constant pressure. By spring 2025, Ethan's face was gone from stress, his eyes restless. He mentioned in passing that someone had tried to hack into Omni Crypto servers, that he was worried about rivals. Seattle's tech scene buzzed around him, but Ethan seemed to live in a different universe, one where every decision could mean millions lost or gained. For Ethan, this was a culmination of a decade of ambition. He started in college mining Bitcoin from a dorm room server rack. He wrote white papers with dreamy titles, Democratizing Finance, The Future of Money, selling the idea that people in remote villages could one day trade in Bitcoin or Ethereum. By 2017, he'd launched Omni Crypto, aiming to build a new crypto exchange with rock-solid security. Early investors flocked in, and by 2021, Ethan was appearing on Forbes' lists and CNBC interviews. The broader context was that the cryptocurrency market itself was booming. By late 2024, the total value of all cryptocurrencies had surged past $3 trillion, eclipsing even the heady 2021 bull run. It was a world of extremes. Fortunes were made overnight, but there was always a catch. Regulators grumbled about fraud, and FBI reports were warning that crypto scams were exploding. In fact, law enforcement reported that victims of crypto investment fraud alone lost over $6.5 billion in 2024. In that volatile environment, people like Ethan Blackwood were both celebrated as geniuses and eyed as potential targets. He knew the headlines, yet he trusted his code, and he certainly trusted himself. The first sign something was wrong came on a Tuesday evening. Ethan was scheduled to host a live stream Q&A about a new token his company was launching. Friends and fans logged in on time, but Ethan never showed. In his home office, the screen was still on, a spreadsheet open to a column titled Next Steps. His wife, Julia, texted him. No reply. His assistant called. No answer. On Ethan's desk, his phone lay on its side, its screen blank but for a single text message notification from that evening. One line of text reading, "Time to reset." The message didn't make sense to anyone. Security cameras from the parking garage revealed something. A black SUV with tinted windows had picked Ethan up from downtown Seattle at 11:48 p.m. the night before. He got in the back seat, glancing nervously over his shoulder, and the car drove off into the rain. The cameras never saw it return. As news of Ethan's disappearance spread, the air in Seattle grew heavy with rumors. Police began digging into his life and found cracks beneath the glossy surface. There were whispers that Omni Crypto had made some shady deals. Last summer, Ethan had quietly bought a stake in a London-based exchange under investigation for money laundering. An anonymous tip even reached a federal hotline, suggesting Ethan was entangled with a notorious offshore syndicate. Some in the trade press noted that days before he vanished, Ethan had clashed with a rival blockchain entrepreneur over an incomplete deal. It appeared that Omni Crypto had borrowed large sums in crypto from an enigmatic fund in the Cayman Islands, funds that now seemed to have vanished off the books. The startup had been due to face a major lawsuit over intellectual property. An old competitor claimed Ethan stole code from their platform. No news outlets had picked it up, but in private boards and whispers, every misstep was magnified. Investors began to sweat. By morning, Omni Crypto's stock price had dipped sharply. Friends and family reacted in agony. Julia wept on camera when interviewed by local news crews, pleading for her husband's safe return. His mother, a retired professor, made frantic posts on social media. At Ethan's mansion, their young daughter told neighbors she was looking for daddy. The corporate world watched too. Conferences skipped talks on crypto adoption in favor of panel discussions about Ethan's fate. Podcasts abounded with wild theories, from kidnapping by tech assassins to a billionaire fleeing to buy a private island. One fiery tweet proclaimed, "Tech gods died the same way as mortals," hinting at scandals, while Forbes rushed a retrospective on Ethan's meteoric rise. The press played up his lavish lifestyle. Photos of him at Monaco casinos and super yacht parties surfaced alongside articles about ruthless titans. Yet amid all this, no one knew the real story. Into this swirling storm stepped Serena Tyler, Ethan's ex-girlfriend and once business partner. She had helped code the first version of Omni Crypto's platform before they broke up acrimoniously in 2022. Serena had since launched a rival startup, Bitnova, and observers couldn't help but notice that while Ethan's assets grew, Serena's stalled. Could Serena have been involved? On social media, some amateur sleuth spotted Serena's car near Ethan's office the week he disappeared. Serena herself was devastated. She broke down on a morning talk show, swearing she had nothing to do with it. "Ethan and I parted ways years ago," she said. "If anything, I'm worried someone hurt him." Her calm alibi was that she'd been in London at the time, a fact corroborated by flight logs. Still, the public imagination ran wild. A jilted lover on the revenge beat? It was a convenient story, but detectives kept digging. Meanwhile, Ethan's business rival and erstwhile friend, Cedric Mason, CEO of rival company Digital Mint, publicly lamented the news. Cedric and Ethan had once been close collaborators, but a falling out over a shared project led to a bitter split in 2023. Cedric had lost millions when Ethan's startup spun out its own blockchain fork. Now, Cedric's name popped up in journalist dossiers as a suspect. He gave interviews with a mournful face, but some listeners caught a hint of smugness. Behind the scenes, however, Cedric was silent, perhaps relieved that any financial bleeding from Ethan's death would end the competition. Or so some thought. The family hired a private investigator, Marcus Blake, a former FBI cyber agent turned security consultant. Blake was methodical, almost mechanical in his approach. He went through Ethan's encrypted laptop backups, interviewed porters at the marina where Ethan kept a yacht, even checked toll cameras outside Seattle. He learned that Ethan had recently taken a late-night ferry to Victoria, Canada, a trip he never mentioned publicly. The puzzling part, Ethan returned empty-handed, with no international charges on his bank card. Blake noted small transactions still lingering on Ethan's crypto wallet. They were micropayments to various online profiles, none tallied enough to buy a plane ticket. It was as if Ethan had been dropping breadcrumbs in the digital world. Amidst the real suspects and investigations, one red herring added spice to the mystery. A leaked email thread circulated online, purportedly showing Ethan arguing with a mysterious investor named Sergei Orlov. Orlov was an Eastern European crypto whale who had been acquiring Omni Crypto shares quietly. In those emails, Ethan threatened to cut Orlov out of a lucrative partnership. Naturally, the public immediately fingered Orlov. Social media exploded with images of Orlov's face plastered over Ethan's last known photos. But Blake's team tracked Orlov's location. He had been in Moscow at the time of the disappearance, attending a conference. Multiple witnesses confirmed Orlov was on stage giving a speech while Ethan was already missing. It was a bust. Orlov issued a cryptic tweet. "My business is blockchain, not blockheads." The clue had led nowhere but into more questions. As days passed, tension rose. Clues remained slippery. Suspects came and went, and Seattle felt a chill that wasn't just a lingering spring rain. The clock was ticking. Then something else happened that finally set things in motion. A ransom note, not for money, but for the truth. Late one night, Blake received an anonymous tip to check the contents of a locked storage unit on the outskirts of Tacoma. Along with the police, he broke in to find the unit empty except for one burned-out security SUV. The smell of smoke still clung to the air. Inside that SUV was a shattered laptop and a broken cell phone. They belonged to Ethan. Blake scoured the wreckage. The screen of the laptop flickered to life as if last command, a looping video message. It was Ethan's face, pale and composed, illuminated by the blue glow of the ruined computer. He spoke quietly. "I'm sorry. When you see this, know that I am okay. Find who betrayed me." Then the feed cut to static. The team found one more clue tucked in the glove box of the SUV. A handwritten note in Ethan's handwriting, stained with gasoline. It read, simply, "Meet me at the old warehouse." Blake's instincts kicked in. The warehouse meant one of two things. It could be a trap or a dead end. He gathered a tactical team and stormed the site at dawn. The building was massive and half abandoned. Steel pillars and broken windows. Inside, the air felt heavy with oil and rust. Two figures were there in the shadows. Detective Maya Jenkins from the Seattle PD and Cedric Mason, the rival CEO. Cedric was cornered against a wall, hands bound. His face was sweaty, frantic. Jenkins was holding back a young man, Patrick Meyer, one of Ethan's close aides, who sobbed and held a smartphone like a lifeline. Marcus Blake took in the scene. Patrick, breathless, stammered through a confession. It was him. It was Cedric. He offered me money to hire those men, the ones at the storage site. He wanted Ethan out of the way. He pointed an accusing finger. Cedric, backed against the cold concrete, looked defeated. Blake pressed him. "Why would Ethan send us here? Did he know about this?" Cedric's voice cracked. He knew everything. He's been pulling the strings. He sent us here. I never touched him. Suddenly, flashing lights pulsed through a shattered rear window. An unseen presence appeared. A tall figure stepped out from the shadows with the ease of someone coming home. It was Ethan Blackwood himself, alive and very much breathing. Detective Jenkins dropped her jaw. Ethan walked calmly to the center of the warehouse. His face was bruised and tired, but there was a glint of resolve in his eye. Marcus Blake felt goosebumps rise on his arms. Ethan spoke in a measured voice. "You found Patrick's message. Thank you for coming." Cedar Miller's mouth hung open. The memory pieces clicked into place for Blake. The burned laptop, the gasoline, the tip, they were all part of Ethan's plan. Ethan continued, looking at Cedric with cold clarity. "You thought this was over. You thought I was gone. But no one hurts me. Not my own partner." Cedric, trembling, spat out the truth. "I never knew. You played me like a fiddle. You knew the whole time, you bastard." The trap was complete. Ethan had orchestrated his own disappearance to flush out the traitors among those he once trusted. "Oh, I knew," Ethan confirmed. "I always knew. Once I learned you were selling our secrets behind my back, I had to be certain." Around them, the team moved in. Officers cuffed Cedric, and Patrick muttered contrition, relieved yet terrified. The warehouse grew quiet except for the distant sirens and Ethan's soft sigh of relief. A hidden motorcycle engine gave a final cough and died in the corner. Ethan's planned getaway. The billionaire had duped everyone, spun his own web. No distant island or secret network needed. It was a trap drawn in the Pacific Northwest. In the aftermath of the warehouse showdown, investigators had a frenzy of evidence to sort. Ethan turned over Patrick's phone logs. The phone had been used to order the hired men, and an encrypted chat tied back to Cedric's personal number. Forensic accountants traced hundreds of thousands of dollars that Cedric had funneled into dummy companies for consulting fees. Blockchain analysts from law enforcement drew up Ethereum smart contracts that showed transfers from Omni Crypto's liquidity pool into Cedric's personal wallet. Time to the night Ethan went missing. These on-chain trails were crucial. Even digital currency doesn't leave law enforcement in the dark. Meanwhile, Video from bystanders at a ferry terminal in Victoria, British Columbia, confirmed Ethan's alibi for the early part of that night. A tough break for anyone claiming he was never in Seattle. Witnesses who saw the black SUV and heard the explosion at the storage unit also gave statements. Not everyone saw Ethan Blackwood's return as heroic, though many hailed his brilliance and cunning. Others painted him as unstable, a tech messiah teetering on the edge. Within 48 hours of the reveal, a joint task force of Seattle police and the FBI gathered enough evidence to formally arrest Cedric Mason and 2 hired accomplices, mercenaries tied to local surveillance work and cybercrime. The charges were severe: conspiracy to commit kidnapping, attempted extortion, and wire fraud. Cedric's bail was denied. Patrick Meyer, the anxious aide, was granted immunity in exchange for full cooperation. The media frenzy was immediate. The Seattle Times ran a banner headline: Crypto CEO feigned disappearance to expose betrayal. Cable networks flooded the airwaves with pundits debating the ethics of Ethan's deception. Omni Crypto's board, convening behind closed doors, was deeply divided. Eventually, they voted narrowly to retain Ethan as CEO, but under a public stipulation. He would attend psychiatric counseling, a PR move to appease investors and distance the company from any hint of volatility. Critics didn't hold back. Some argued Ethan had crossed moral and legal lines, faking a disappearance, using public resources, and orchestrating a plan that endangered bystanders. A fire marshal called the warehouse stunt reckless. A civic watchdog filed complaint over the cost of the multi-agency manhunt. Ethan, in turn, agreed to reimburse the city for the damaged SUV and property loss at the Tacoma site. Even within Omni Crypto, staff were rattled. Some quietly submitted resignations. Others viewed Ethan with awe. In a private internal memo, one senior engineer wrote, "He built the company. He nearly burned it down. And we're all still here." Emotionally, the fallout was intense. Julia Blackwood fell into Ethan's arms the moment she learned he was alive. Maya, his daughter, gleefully insisted he take her out for ice cream immediately. Ethan spent days with his family out of the public eye, their portrait rolling in tabloids. Relieved to be home but shaken. At the courthouse, Cedric pled guilty in a surprising plea deal. He confessed that greed had clouded his judgment. He claimed he had only meant to intimidate, never truly harm. The judge was unsympathetic. Cedric received a lengthy sentence. As for Patrick Meyer, Ethan's aide, he also pled guilty to his part as the middleman. With the main culprits behind bars, one last thread remained: the digital traces. Authorities seized Cedric's encrypted laptop and fed it to experts. Emails between Cedric and his underlings detailed the plan, including instructions to keep Blackwood off the grid no matter what. The FBI's IC3 report on the year became an unexpected footnote in the investigation. It had warned that cryptocurrency schemes were rising and criminals were getting smarter. Omni Crypto even brought in Chainalysis consultants to vet their security system. In a final twist of irony, Ethan's dramatic stunt had given law enforcement a textbook case to study. Life began to return to normal. Omni Crypto stock rebounded, called, half-jokingly, Blackwood Bounce. Ethan held a subdued press conference where he admitted to staging the disappearance. He said he had done it to expose the corruption threatening his company, though he expressed regret for the fear it caused. "It was a desperate move, but I felt I had no choice," he said softly. Julia stood by his side and later defended him in interviews. "He saved our company. He saved himself." Lawyers are reportedly drafting contracts to cover any legal fallout from Ethan's actions, but for now the books are closed. In the end, the case of Ethan Blackwood reveals a modern parable about power and anonymity. In the glittering world of cryptocurrency, wealth can be both shield and target. Blockchain's promise of transparency couldn't hide personal vendettas and greed. Indeed, that transparency was what solved the mystery in the end. For every digital footprint Ethan tried to erase, the network itself did not forget. This story shows that even billionaires are vulnerable when trust breaks down. The tools of the digital age, encrypted messages, blockchain ledgers, global networks, were wielded by both sides. But human motives remain the driving force. As FBI data quietly reminds us, billions flow through crypto, and criminals follow close behind. Above all, this mystery underscores that money can complicate loyalty. Ethan Blackwood was a man who lived among code and ledgers, but in the climactic hours it was a raw human cost. Betrayal by a friend, love for his family. That carried him through. He faked his own disappearance not for adventure, but to flush out a serpent from his garden. In doing so, he sacrificed his reputation and peace of mind for the truth. If there's a lesson here, it's that technology may evolve, but the age-old themes of greed, revenge, and justice still play out in the same fundamental ways. No secret message, no matter how encrypted, can hide what lies in a person's heart. If this story captivated you, subscribe for more Wiz Mysteries, and let us know in the comments which case you want next. This is Wiz Mysteries True Crime, where hidden lives collide with grim reality.